started here.
Yep,
But maybe
and
a minute or two.
Mr. Chair, we are live now, so
Very good, thank you.
certainly.
We'll keep all of Glenn's stories safe for work.
We're all good.
Glenn's always safe for work. We're gonna give everybody just a minute here to jump in. I think we're getting close to our full complement of governors, but I'm gonna give everyone a chance. It's unfortunate that we won't be in person, but given the COVID, the acceleration in COVID, we all determined that it was best to keep all of us out of the boardroom and give the staff as much distancing opportunity as possible. So it's nice to see. I can't tell from here, but it looks like you guys are all a solid 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Yep, Steve measured beforehand.
Good. We have to outfit everybody with a hula hoop of
I just got a visual. Of Todd hula hoop.
Can you manage a hula hoop, Darren?
Oh my God.
No?
Why is that all so funny? Maybe I'm really good at it, guys. You have no idea.
I'd like to see Darren and Todd in a hula hoop off.
Oh, God. I'm gonna guess it would be a short contest. I'm just saying.
And we'd all pay to watch.
Oh my God. Don't say that. Todd will make me do it at this point. If it's revenue, I may have to.
Yeah.
Hey, Todd, that might help balance the budget, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, guys. Whatever it takes.
I think we might be onto something here.
Yep.
Is this
I think the
fundraiser?
marketing department can get on that right away. We'll have a hula hoop contest in the main terminal building.
There we go.
All right, I think we're good to get started now. Welcome everybody to the November meeting of the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority. We're gonna get started. Sylvette's gonna mute everybody, and Tom will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely.
If you don't mind, Mr. Director.
Yep, so that you can let me know when we're muted. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Appreciate that. Sylvette, would you please lead or perform a roll call for attendance?
I sure will. I just want to remind everyone to please unmute yourselves as I do this roll call because I see a lot of people still muted. So I'll start with Brian Dames.
Here.
Chuck Dicont. Mike Dowd.
Here.
Frank Facciano.
Here.
Glenn Geisinger.
Present.
John Hayes.
Here.
Ron Heckman. Larry Hamburger.
Is Larry on?
I thought I saw Larry.
Yeah, I saw Larry.
He might be muted.
Okay, I do see Larry and he is muted. Okay. Jeff Matskin. Glenn Reedman.
Present.
Ted Rosenberger. Mike Stershik.
Here.
Matt Turk.
Here I am.
Chris Worley.
Here.
And Tara Zirinsky.
Also muted.
Hi, Tara. I see you're muted. It's okay.
I'm here.
All right. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Great. And I saw that it looks like there's a couple phone numbers. I know one of those was Glenn. I'm not sure who the other one was, but perhaps one of our other board members. Excellent. Thank you, Sylvette. Appreciate that. Do we have any public comment for today's meeting?
We do not, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would then ask, I hope you all had an opportunity to review the minutes of October 27th, 2020. They are in Novus if you're going to take a quick look. But I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our October board meeting.
So moved.
Okay, and a second, please.
Second.
I'll leave that up to Sylvette to sort out. Without any discussion, I'd ask for a vote to approve the minutes. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Glenn has a report for us and then a number of items related to the Finance Committee. Glenn, you want to take it?
I think actually John's going to do the treasurer's report.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I jumped right over that. Appreciate that. John, I'm assuming you're going to be handing right over to Todd for our treasurer's report.
That is correct.
Excellent. Take it away, Todd.
So good afternoon, everybody. For those of you who were on the call yesterday, this is going to be a recap, but going over our year-to-date financials through October. Again, we are in the black. Nice color for us to be in. We were in the red earlier in the year, so let's stay in the black. At this point, we're predicting to stay in the black through the end of this year, so again, that's positive news. We had a fairly good month of October. A lot of that attributed to things that were going on behind the scenes, some additional CARES money that we received from some of our unemployment, some reductions for our workman's comp, and all that hit in October. Again, a lot of these things are behind the scenes, but these are things that are actually helping us out. Again, you can see where we are, net revenues, expenses, but again, the key thing is that we are in the black on a positive number. That includes, obviously, the significant amount of CARES money, $3.3 million, but we'll take black any way we can get it. Again, this is kind of our recap of kind of our top things that have kind of helped us out. Number one on that list is CARES, followed by personnel, and you follow it all the way down. Number 9, again, I wanted to point out, as I did yesterday, that you're starting to see some of those benefits from our deferred capital projects in the depreciation line, which is also helping us out on the operating line. So that takes us up to about 9.3. Again, we're chasing revenue approaching $10 million shortfall, but considering everything we're doing with the assistance of the CARES, we're only 463,000 or 463,000 on most of those items and a few others, because 459,000 off of budget. Again, we've done everything we can to kind of offset those numbers, and so far so good. Point this out yesterday. I think it's just kind of a recap to kind of remind us of where we were and where we think we'll be for next year, 10 months in. So if you go back to 2013, those things are in yellow. We were, I'll get that one way or another, I think it's up here, and right here in the yellow. We were, our debt service coverage is 1.25. We got into October, not exactly blowing it away. I mean, we needed to be approximately 4.4. We were at 4.2, and we squeezed in to meet our debt service coverage. Our organizational focus was obviously on WBF. Same thing in 2014. Then in 2015, we kind of, that was our last kind of big deal with WBF. We had a huge payment due in 2015. We were able to do our bond refinancing, and that helped us out. So through 10 months with that refinancing, we were in a much better place versus where we needed to be for the end of the year. So we made our debt coverage 1.47. And you can see all the other years there where we managed to stay in the green because we were in growth mode. So our coverage became kind of a non-factor. We weren't squeaking by. We were making those numbers significantly in 2017, over 2, 18 and 19, over 2. We were still in growth mode going into early 2020. Obviously, COVID changed that. But as you see that one with the asterisk, and I think it's important as we talk about our budget of where we would be had we not done these bond reissues and some of these other things we've done and the CARES money. I mean, it's really important to kind of understand the gravity of the situation had we not done those things. So we would be in a situation where there would be no way we can meet that debt service coverage. We would be about $2 million before depreciation, and we needed to be, through 10 months, approximately 5.4. We would be in the red on net income. We would be about 2.4 million in the hole without some of the things that we've done in that CARES money. Again, very important for us. And we just didn't rely on the CARES. We did some other things. And because we didn't do that, we didn't rely solely on CARES, and we took some actions on our own end. We were able to kind of save some of that CARES money for 2021. Because again, if we hadn't done that, you can see the second asterisk from the bottom over there. You can see that right about there, that we would be coming to you now saying, when we talk later about our budget, that we would have a net income of about 2.7 that will be looked in the hole through 10 months. Not a good look, and really a struggle to meet our debt service coverage. But again, because we've done those things, we're still keeping our eye on growth, and we're not just worried about some kind of a stimulus package to keep us going. We've done our best to kind of handle our own things, but obviously stimulus money will help us out along the way. So even when we talk about our budget later, it is not contingent, and that's a good thing to keep in mind. It's not contingent on things that we don't know about at this point. We don't know if there's going to be additional CARES money. We certainly think so, but our budget is not contingent upon some things that are kind of up in the air at this point. So again, this is really a credit to the people in this room, our staff, the board, and everyone, just getting us to this point where, granted, we're not blowing things out of the water, but at least we can tread water as we kind of get to safer ground, so to speak. And with that, that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Going once, twice. If nobody has any questions, I guess I ask Darren to ask a question on this meeting. All right, thank you.
Okay, Todd, thank you.
Yeah.
I'd move to approve the finance report as presented.
We'll accept that. Take a motion to accept the finance. Excuse me, let's get a second on that.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. All in favor of accepting the finance report as presented, please say aye. Or the treasurer's report?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right. And I think Todd's going to stay up there because we might have some items here. Correct, Todd?
The next one for Steve.
Okay, great. All right. I will hand it over to Glenn as our finance committee chair to walk through this bit.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yesterday in the Finance Committee meeting, we had a number of items which we reviewed in detail. We have come before the full board for approval of the following. The first will be the resolution for the public assistance or FEMA grant program. Steve is going to go into a little bit of detail of that for the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. This is basically a resolution authorizing Tom to sign the paperwork to apply for public assistance. Basically, this is a grant to reimburse us for our emergency protective measures that we implemented here at the airport due to COVID-19. As you kind of look through the analysis here, we've purchased some equipment, different sanitization, different sanitizers, PPE for staff. It's important to note that this is PPE for staff that are part of our emergency response to COVID. This funding would not reimburse the cost for the cloth mask you see in the room here. Primarily what our first responders, custodians are using to actually respond to the COVID crisis. We began tracking these numbers in January or February this year. The reporting period is through September 14th. Our materials and supplies, about $60,000. Some contractor services included in there to install signage, protective barriers. So our current application amount is for $69,600. We do have about $7,000 worth of inventory currently in stock. So our total allowable application at this point is $62,500. So this is the amount we'll be applying to FEMA for reimbursement for our COVID. That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, thanks, Steve. It was pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from the board at this time? Okay, hearing none, then I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I'll make a motion.
Been so moved by Tara. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Dowd. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And if any opposed? Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the approval by the full board of the 2021 operating budget. Again, we went over this in the committee. We did discuss it somewhat last month as well. So a number of these items should be a pretty quick review. Todd, thank you. If you would start on that.
Sure, Glenn. And before I start, I wanted to kind of chime in on Steve's thing on the FEMA. If you look on your financial packet, a bulk of those charges are showing up under events. So that grant will actually help our operating budget when we receive that, because obviously we haven't accrued it because we didn't get it. We weren't sure if we were going to. So again, these are things, everybody working behind the scenes to kind of help us out. So that helps our operating budget as well. I just wanted to chime in on that because everything kind of is connected here. So again, I apologize if it's a little redundant for the folks that were on yesterday's Zoom call, but again, this is our operating budget. Again, our vision, pretty basic stuff, remain financially responsible, strategic, manage our expectations. You know, I consider my job to be the good steward of our operations, of our funds, and I get the support of everyone in this room and our board to kind of help accomplish that. Last year's goals, just a little bit different, just to remind us, they were a little bit different. Last year we were extremely in growth mode, so things were a little bit more aggressive. Let's segregate some of the portion for for future debt service. Let's do this. Let's do that. Let's continue investing. Go, go, go. And we still want to go. We're probably just a little bit slower than we were last year. Again, we're going to scale it back. Hey, obviously we still have to meet our debt service coverage, manage our resources, and that's a difficult thing sometimes because, during the COVID situation, I said this yesterday, in some instances it would have been better for us to shut down, but we were not in a position to do that. So obviously, what we have to do is manage our resources, keep people safe, keep people working as best as we can, and try to maintain the long-term vision of our airport. Number 3 is really critical because we pushed a lot of stuff to the second half of the year. We're just kind of in that fluid kind of motion with our budget. We originally, if you remember, we were talking about 2 6-month budgets, but we're not actually going to do that. It's going to be somewhat more flexible where a lot of stuff is postponed to the second half. And then, if need be, we'll have to break that glass to increase our airline rates if necessary, and that would be in the third quarter. Hopefully we won't have to do that, but again, that's something that we're keeping an eye on. Nothing about that is different from what we've been able to do in years past, but this year, because of some of our challenges, we're just keeping that more on our radar. Just want to go to the key budget assumptions. I'm not going to go through them all like I did yesterday, but again, as I mentioned earlier, very important for us. Remember, we carried over $3.5 million of the CARES money into this year's budget. Critical for us to balance our budget. Critical. We would have been a negative $3,432,000 had we not done that. But because we were strategic, we actually are showing a positive $68K for this year's budget. Again, one of our goals is to make sure that we meet our debt service and we show a positive number. Even if it's 50 cents in this kind of environment, that's a good 50 cents. You can see some of the differences from previous years and what we used year-to-date CARES Act. Again, meeting our debt service coverage 1.6. Most of our revenue assumptions are in that 60 to 65% range versus the 2019 activity, except for de-icing, which a lot of that is reflective of kind of the cargo flights, so that's at 78. Budgeted expenses, 6% below 2017. What year is next year, Colin?
2021.
2021, so 6% below 2017. So when I talk about us rationing out toilet paper, I wasn't kidding. 10% increase on landing fees. not something we're happy about, but that was us kind of figuring out the best way we can kind of do things. 3% decrease on terminal. Again, we're in the midst of working on new rates and charges. That won't change the overall revenue. It'll just change kind of who pays what. Budgeted contract expenses for snow. Everybody should know our budgeted number is roughly 300,000. If that's a quiz, I'm going to ask you later. You better know that number. And then for this year, as we've done in 2020, we budgeted some bad debt, and for next year, it's budgeted at 250,000. Our capitalization threshold remains at $5,000. So for those of us that aren't accountants, they have to understand that anything over $5,000 with a useful life of 3 years or more is going to show up in the depreciation line. So it's just something to think about when you see that number. It's a relatively low number, but a lot of our expenses show below the line under depreciation. You can see here our historical rates. 4.7 was our budgeted rate 2020. As you remember, we were trying to get that number below 4. That was been our goal, but we had to spike up through no fault of our own. That we're up to $5.15, slightly below 10%. Landing terminal square footage rate down slightly less than 3%. Then you can get in here, this our revenues, just kind of a summary of what's going on, and I'm not going to go through this too much, just kind of get a feel for what's going on. Again, you can see the impact on our operations. Going through, again, everything's kind of down versus what, but the key thing you want to keep in mind is this number right here, 679 versus this year's number, or last year's budget, or this year's budget, should I say, of 1,000,007, and we're at 68,000. Again, as a semi-public entity, we're not here to make as much money as possible, but again, we want to be self-sufficient. So 68,000, not the greatest. You can also see here what's going on with the depreciation number. Again, our continued investment in our infrastructure. I mentioned this yesterday. You can see that number, even with some of the deferred stuff, 5.6 goes to 6.3. And if you go back to what I showed earlier, I think we were not even below, we were below 3 million, I believe, in 2013. So every time we have extra money, somebody who's not an accountant, who doesn't understand this stuff, has to understand whatever money over and above our reserves goes back into our infrastructure. We continue to reinvest in ourselves. It's not like it goes in anybody's pocket in here. It goes into us reinvesting in ourselves. Cash flow, again, is kind of a do-over. Hopefully it'll be better than 2020. We're roughly about the same starting point. You can see what's going on there, where we go through all of our stuff here. Again, you can see some of the reductions in CFCs and PFCs there versus, I mean, there's some big numbers right there we use for infrastructures as well. Again, flowing through, CIP impact, again, CARES in yellow there, really important. We didn't budget last year to have any CARES. This year, we have it budgeted. Then you get into here. Now, one of the things we did do is we still have our contingencies in there. We still anticipate being able to stay over 60 days cash on hand for 2021 at this point. And you can see that the number is lower than last year, and that is because our burn rate. So even though we're at 4 million, call it 4.1, and 83 days cash on hand, and last year we were at 4.9 and 72 days cash on hand, that's because our burn rate for expenses has went down significantly. It actually went down 27%. Again, if you heard me say earlier, we are at 2017, below 2017 level for expense numbers. Again, what year were we in, Colin?
2020 or 2020. Next year's 2021.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Here's our comparison of landing fees. Again, if you see that number there, it's in I guess that's in orange. Our actual, so even though we budgeted $4.70, our actual after settlement, we were right there to be below that $4. We were $4 after the settlement And that was our number. But this year, we're at 515 again, no fault of our own. And you can see, and as I mentioned yesterday, our numbers has been coming down. Everybody else's numbers, even though they were beating us at one point, we're kind of like that turtle. We're coming right behind you. We're going to catch you. We're going to catch you. Because everybody else has been going up a little bit. We're staying the same. Ours has been coming down except for this year. And then you get into the CPE. Again, ours has been coming down relatively versus other folks. But this year, because of the drop in employments, that number is up significantly. But again, that's probably relatively the same thing that's going on with every other airport that's out there as well. At this point, I'll open it up for any questions. I'm going to have Darren ask a question just so I don't feel lonely up here. Maybe Connie will ask a question. All right, thank you.
All right. Seeing no questions, I would ask for a motion to approve the 2021 operating budget as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. The last item on our agenda from the Finance Committee is the approval of the capital improvement program. I believe, who's going to pick this one up, Tom?
This will be Ryan.
Ryan's going to pick this one up? Okay, I wasn't sure if he was in the room. I didn't see him.
Yep.
Thanks, Ryan.
No problem. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll just run through quickly the proposed capital improvement program. A lot of this, ties into obviously what Todd had mentioned earlier with some of the numbers and comparisons. But just going through a little bit, we went through committees yesterday. Again, lean and conservative approach, including contingencies and projects, leveraging funding, looking at the projects that we can get funding for. And then the other thing that you'll see as we go through, we prioritize some of the equipment and departmental projects by quarter. As Todd mentioned earlier, most of it to the latter half of next year. And again, as we always like to do, again, projects that ensure safety, continued service, emergency business critical are ones that we're continuing to push forward on. Just kind of listed the exhibits here that are in the budget, the breakout 2021, the overall departmental projects, some of the outlook for the departmental projects, and then kind of the rest of our 5-year CIP that we're showing. So again, we always like to look back a little bit and see where we've come. Again, the investment infrastructure that we're doing, and then in terms of 2021, as we mentioned and Todd even showed earlier, about $43.4 million total cost, about 19.6 LNAA share. So where that breaks out, if you look at Exhibit A from the packet, is all these major projects here. The big ones that are continuing are the runway rehab. Total cost right now is still, we're showing around $19 million for next year, with our share there shown as well. And then the terminal connector security checkpoint project, which we've been talking about at our committees as well. You'll see again the other state and FAA grants shown there, total cost with the LNA share and then the associated contingencies with those as well. 5 major non-grant projects, similar to last year, we kind of broke them out. Again, business critical, required to ensure some of the strategic focus, but really the thing to keep in mind is all of these, except for one, are newer projects that are really budgeted for the latter half of next year. The boarding bridges, as an example, is a contract we currently have awarded to Ameribridge. This is the next phase going on into next year. And something a little different we did this year, but just wanted to call attention to, is the 2020 allocated capital projects. We consolidated into one line. So what we mentioned about it in committees is any project that's physically complete, we're starting to depreciate, but there's still some outstanding payments and items to include. Just kind of cleaned it up that way to include it in one item. Again, cumulative department spending on Exhibit B, you'll see on the next page. Really consolidates that number, this 1.246 here. And then what we also did is added a cash flow adjustments number that ties to the timing of payments versus the receipt of grants that we have.
There's some cheese in the fridge.
All right, and then Exhibit B, 19 departmental projects we have listed here. You'll see we included a lot of the projects by quarter. And just as a reference, 2020 last year we had 47 projects. We're showing 19 this year. So again, just really prioritizing the projects that we have listed. And then the categories for each of those in terms of where they are in the facility and some of the outlook are in exhibits C through E. So I believe that's all I had, just a quick summary. Any questions?
Again, this was covered pretty much in depth yesterday at the committee meeting. Ryan, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Does anybody on board have any questions or concerns at this time?
No question, but just a quick reminder, I don't think you mentioned it, Ryan, is that in fiscal year 2021, these projects are all 100% funded, correct?
The FAA grants are, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And at this time, I would ask for a motion to approve the capital improvement program as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you very much. That completes the Finance Committee report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Excuse me. Quick item, a couple of items, kind of closing out items from the executive committee on a land transaction with Rockefeller. I think Darren's going to quickly walk us through these. They're pretty perfunctory, but Darren, I'll cede the floor to you.
Sure, thanks, Matt. Yeah, these are just pretty kind of administrative issues to proceed to closing. We're scheduled to close on our last two properties with the Rockefeller Group on December 11th. So these are just two resolutions, one for each property, authorizing the executive director to sign all the closing documents and execute, anything needed for closing. So certainly answering questions, but I would look to pass these as two separate resolutions. So if anybody has any questions, I'll answer those first.
Any questions for Darren?
My legal, with that legal review.
Sounds like no. So we will ask for an approval to authorize Tom, our executive director, to sign and execute documents related for closing documents for Lot 5A in Hanover Township first. Can I have a motion to authorize Tom to do so?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Any commentary related to this one? I'd ask then for a vote to approve the motion as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. And then secondarily, I'd ask for a motion to authorize Tom, our executive director, to sign and execute closing documents related to Lot 6 in East Allen Township. Any questions related to that? Otherwise, I'd ask for a motion to do so.
So moved.
Thank you, Glenn. Second.
Second.
I gave you the motion, Glenn, so we'll take a second from somebody else.
Second.
I'll take the second. There, we'll do Glenn and Glenn.
Other Glenn. To double your pleasure on Glenn's
Yeah,
today.
that's right.
Okay, all in favor
Only
of
twins.
approving the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Nope. All right, great. The motion is approved. Tom has the authority to sign for these two documents and complete the transactions with Rockefeller. I believe that's all for the executive committee. I would then ask Tom to proceed with the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Taking a look at the numbers for October, our passenger traffic at Lehigh Valley Airport was down about 53.7% versus last October. Year to date, that's about a 56.7% decline. In terms of our air cargo numbers, however, is a different story. Air cargo for the month of October was up 15.7%, year-to-date increase of 18.8%. So continuing to see ATI and FedEx performing well here at ABE. In terms of items since our last board meeting on October 27th, throughout the month of November, our staff is working diligently to complete all the required federal regulation training required under Part 139. That's all being done virtually for the first time this year, so a number of challenges, but thank you to Steve Connors and Brian Dennis, the operations team, for putting that together. Great job. We did, on November 12th, issue the first edition of Boarding Pass, a newsletter for ABE. So that went out. I think we got some good comments on that. We'll continue to have forthcoming issues. We also have a blood drive coming up November 18th. So Miller Keystone did perform a blood drive on the 18th. About 14 units were collected, so I think that was a pretty good result. We appreciate that. On November 19th, the Chamber held their annual meeting. Congratulations, Frank, virtual meeting, and Tony, the whole crew did a great job there. We were able to give away tickets to a lucky winner for a raffle, as we do every year, so we're happy to do that. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
November 20th, we unveiled a new amenity for passengers, this one for our servicemen and women or veterans. Military Resource Center was unveiled in our departure building. That facility was dedicated to Michaela Ashmar, who passed away on September 5th. And lastly, last evening, we held our annual tabletop exercise, which is another federal requirement under Regulations Part 139. And that was, again, a virtual exercise, but I will say it was probably the best presentation that we've had since I can recall, and I've been involved in quite a few of these, but excellent job, a great participation, albeit virtually, really fantastic attendance and participation. So again, Steve and Jennifer did a great job from the staff pulling all that together, so thank you very much for that. And with that, Mr. Chair, that concludes the public portion of my report for today. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Does anyone have any questions for Tom?
Nope.
Tom, the freight, the cargo numbers are very impressive and look good. Are we projecting? We're not going to continue to see 20% annual growth in cargo. I mean, it's tremendous. Or maybe we are. Maybe we'll see more. Who knows? The world's changing rapidly. What's your feeling?
Well, I mean, I think you're right. I think the 20% is going to be difficult to continue to maintain. But I do think we're going to continue to see strong performance just based on, the activity levels. We know what's happening around the region. We know FedEx continues to have strong performance. They were up about 45% this month. And so we think that those numbers are going to continue. Certainly different segments of the market between FedEx and what ATI is doing. But again, I think 20% might be difficult to maintain next year, but I still think we're going to see that positive trajectory.
And there's additional opportunities within the fence, certainly, for growth in this sector. So it's encouraging.
Absolutely.
Any other comments or questions for Tom? Okay, thank you, sir. Judge Friedberg, could you please provide us with a solicitor's report?
Sure. I'm pleased to tell you that we had two favorable decisions on tax assessment appeals in Lehigh County, so that came through this month, and that's good news to win, obviously. As you heard, the preparations for the Rockefeller closings have been ongoing, and Rob Donchez of our office has been in charge of that. And as Darren indicated, things are on track for those closings to occur December 11th. And thus far, from what I know, everything's positive about that. We have been involved in ongoing negotiations relating to pending real estate transactions, and I assume there'll be more discussion of that in executive sessions. Some routine matters involving contracts, the Spirit Wings Aviation contract affecting movement of aircraft at Braden's, revisions were prepared to that. There was a sub-grant agreement with Lehigh County that required some very minimal adjustments, and that's been taken care of. The Amazon de-icing agreement A new agreement has been prepared. Snow removal equipment contract, an amendment was prepared to that. And there are the other routine matters that I won't trouble you with, right to know request and things of that nature. But basically, things are moving forward in a positive way from the solicitor standpoint.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone have any questions for the judge related to the solicitor's report? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is there any new business to attend to from the board? Without any, I would ask, we do need to enter into executive session. There's a number of matters. Judge, could you please explain the reason behind executive session?
Yes, we will be discussing pending real estate transaction involving a lease. We will be receiving a report from the executive director, purely an informational report. There'll be no discussion or decisions with regard to that. There's also a litigation matter that is an exempt topic for discussion in an executive session.
Thank you, sir. I'd ask for a motion to enter into executive session.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. A second.